Today we have for you love spells, bad paperwork, and one very flustered fairy godmother. Welcome to Romance and Hijinks. Sit back, listen, and enjoy the chaos. The Romantic Magic Compliance Division always smelled faintly of rosewater and burning lavender, which meant at least 3 contracts had gone volatile that morning, and someone from Temp Affairs was trying to cover it up with a perfume hex and sheer denial. Kona sat cross-legged on a floating poof in the pastel glow waiting lounge, her teacup vibrating gently in its saucer as it offered her its 6th soothing blend of the hour. "Chamomile, hibiscus, peace leaf," it cooed, eager. "No," she said flatly, barely looking up as she scrolled further down her crystal tablet. Magical case updates scrolled in pale gold beneath her fingertips. Broken heart. Subject match failure. Candlelight dinner drowned by rogue rain elemental. Coupled heart. Subject match success. Swamp witch plus enchanted opera ghost. 92% compatibility. She sighed and took the tea anyway. The blend was fine. A bit floral, a bit smug. The emotional temperature dripped slightly as a glowing letter landed in someone's lap across the lounge. Its recipient wilted, their aura shifting to a telltale rejection purple that would cling for days. Poor thing. Kona stretched and adjusted her sparkly lavender scarf. You know your life's weird when your teacup has more emotional regulation than you do. She had meditated last night. Full moon salts, herbal intention oil, the works. This assignment was going to be simple. Clean. No surprises. No pirates. Pirates, she muttered aloud, just as a portal curtain whooshed open behind the reception desk. Out stomped Gibbon, puffed, winged, vaguely bear-shaped, and eternally unimpressed. His tiny wire glasses perched on his snout. One paw clutched a clipboard, muttering to itself. The other slammed a desk drawer closed fast enough to send a pink book cover labeled Forbidden Blossoms of the Still Lands skidding halfway out before he shoved it back inside with a grunt. Kona arched her brow. "Didn't know you were into interrealm slow-burn forbidden romances." "They have an adequate plot structure," he muttered, ears turning mauve. "I'm sure," she said, grinning. Before Gibbon could respond, there was a glittery whoosh overhead. A blur of wings and glitter zipped into view. Pex, the office gossip sprite, twirling mid-air like a sparkler with secrets. "Oh, Kona!" Pex beamed, landing delicately on a floating file folder. "You're here early again. Still trying to impress the review board after the mermaid incident?" One cursed conch shell, and everyone acts like it was intentional. "It was Tuesday," Gibbon said, stamping something on his clipboard with clear irritation. "Which means your pay is officially docked for minor enchantment crossfire on a weekday." "That's a thing now?" "It is because of you." Pex, meanwhile, was rooting through a sparkle-lined messenger pouch. "I brought your new book drop. It's spicy, but like emotionally spicy. You'll cry and blush. Want a teaser?" Kona reached for it, but Gibbon slapped a paw over the cover. "No reading on bureau time." Pex winked. "Tell that to your drawer romance, Gibbsy." "Out," he grumbled, ears twitching. Kona smirked. "You'll cannon by lunch." "I never cave." He handed her a softly glowing scroll. It pulsed in her palm like a heart mid-flutter. "Your next assignment," he said. "Standard royal directive. You're assisting Lady Daphne of Ashglen in charming Prince Izar of Solara, realm of Eldermire." Kona blinked. "Royal matchmaking? Again? That's 3 this year." The prince's mother filed a formal request, likely desperate. Don't nobles ever try mutual eye contact? an emotionally honest conversation, that would void half our employment contracts. She sighed and tapped the scroll with her wand. It pulsed violet, then shot off towards the bureau's vault with a chimed shwoop. As the Eldermeyer portal shimmered open nearby, framed in gold thread and rose quartz, a fragrant breeze rolled in. Dew-washed grass, wildflowers, and that faint tickle of fate. Kona stood, brushing croissant flakes from her skirt. All right, quiet noble girl, obvious prince, predictable contract. Could be worse. Could be pirates again, Gibbon deadpanned. Kona visibly flinched. We do not say the P word in this office. She turned toward the portal, but Gibbon cleared his throat. Standard warning. Say it. Kona groaned. Really? I still have glitter in my fur from the soul bond incident. She muttered. Fine. Anne recited. No direct romantic entanglement, no enchanted flirtation, no soul bond drift. Gibbon narrowed his eyes. Last quarter, you glowed pink sparkles for 2 days. That was moonlight exposure. While dancing with a bard on a moonlit balcony during a ballad called Destiny's Yearning. Kona turned on her heel. I'm leaving now. You will again. I'm reporting it. Noted. As she stepped into the portal, the teacup gave a hopeful little chirp and offered a nearby armchair its final brew of the morning. The garden looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never been told no. A dizzying sweep of curated charm, every bloom arranged with obsessive precision, the butterflies flitting between flower beds in assigned spirals. Even the sunlight came in filtered through silken canopy vines, enchanted to shift in pastel gradients with the hour. Birdsong echoed from trellises above, precise, trilling germanies carefully tuned to guest emotions. As Kona stepped under the marble archway, the air shifted, and a lute-like motif twinkled overhead. She paused. The scent, dew-kissed roses, faint jasmine, a whiff of something lemony and anxious? If this place were any more charming, it'd start charging a soul tax. A footman with the expression of a sentient statue gestured toward a shaded tea table nestled in a ring of powder blue cushions. There sat Lady Daphne. She was cradling a teacup in both hands like it might fly off if she let it. Her gown was silk, layered, and so pale a blue, it made her freckles disappear and her hair go sharp and coppery. The wrong blue. The kind of blue chosen by someone else. Kona approached with a soft, practiced smile. Her bag floated down beside the cushion with a sound like settling feathers. You must be Lady Daphne. Daphne's head snapped up, wide-eyed. Oh my stars, you're real! I mean, of course you're real. You're in my garden, and you have sparkle on your shoes. Kona glanced down. Her low-heeled slippers shimmered faintly in the sun. They insisted, she said. I just thought you'd be older, Daphne added, flushing. Father said the Bureau would send a seasoned romantic specialist, and I suppose I imagined robes, maybe? Kona raised a brow. Sorry to disappoint? No, I mean, you're stunning and poised, and you have that floaty wand aura thing. Let's sit, Kona offered, gently intercepting what was about to become either a compliment or a breakdown. Tea. Daphne nodded quickly. Yes, jasmine and star apple. The birds picked it. She gestured toward a flowering shrub, which chirped in a soft approval. Kona eased into her cushion and let the mood-sensing birds do their thing. They tripped a curious trill with a dry little twist at the end. Snarky birds, of course. Daphne inhaled and attempted a smile. It came out apologetic. Kona let the silence linger, sipping her tea. Gave Daphne room. Everything about the girl said trained. The way she sat, the way she held her shoulders, the way her eyes flicked toward the manor every few seconds as if waiting for someone to correct her posture. "So," Kona said lightly, "you're hoping to charm a prince?" "Yes, Prince Izar. Very eligible, very princely. His hair is quite famous." Kona stirred her tea. "It is very glossy." Daphne's shoulders dropped half an inch. "Exactly." Kona tilted her head. "And you want this match?" There was a pause, a flicker, a glance toward the manor windows. "I want to be happy," Daphne said at last. "Father says I will be." Kona didn't say anything at first. She just sipped, set her cup down, let the silence wrap around them like gauze. Then, quiet and casual, "You ever feel like fate's maybe drump and off course?" Daphne blinked. "Pardon?" "I mean," Kona added with a shrug, "you plan for one thing, train your whole life for it, then fate goes and picks the scenic route, with potholes and probably goats." A laugh escaped her before she could smother it. "Goats?" "Metaphorical, mostly." Another pause. This one softer. "I suppose," I thought, "if I followed all the right steps, if I was sweet and polite and agreeable, someone would choose me." Kona nodded slowly. "That's a lot to carry around, especially in silk." That earned her a small, real smile. Kona stood and stretched lightly, brushing non-existent lint off her scarf. "Let's take it slow. Get to know the setting. You don't have to impress anyone just yet." "You think I can do this?" Daphne asked, hesitant. "I think we'll find a way, even if it's not the one written in glowing ink." As they turned back toward the house, a gardener strolled by balancing a bundle of wisteria with one arm and a shovel in the other. Daphne hesitated, stepped forward, then faltered. I said hydrangeas, not wisteria," she called, her voice thin. The gardener blinked. "My apologies, milady. I'll fetch the right blooms." She smiled faintly, proud and uncertain all at once. Kona didn't say anything, just smiled to herself. Maybe this wouldn't be a disaster after all. The royal garden of Solara had been styled within an inch of its enchanted life. Crystal tables floated just above soft grass trimmed to illusionist perfection. A quartet of violins hovered mid-air, bows moving in slow, graceful arcs while playing a string arrangement of Ode to Longing in Moonlight, Part 2. The sky was suspiciously blue, likely under a glamour dome, and enchanted swan-shaped napkins ruffled daintily with every breeze. Kona walked the edge of the lawn with her clipboard tucked under one arm and her wand hidden in her belt sash. She wore lilac silk with subtle shimmer, her hair half-pinned with moonberry blossoms, understated by bureau standards, but still worlds apart from the powdered and preen nobles gliding across the garden. She exhaled through her nose. All right, no pirates, no summoned exes, no doppelgangers. Let's just get Daphne a soft opening to this prince. Ease them into... Lady Daphne of Ash Glen, accompanied by, Godmother Kona of the Loomway Bureau. Oh no. A ripple of noble glances and suppressed whispers passed through the garden like gossip lightning. Kona smiled tightly and gave the subtlest wave allowed in diplomatic company. Daphne curtsied and immediately caught her heel on the edge of a table. She staggered, caught herself, and then tried again with a nervous smile. Her gown, green with soft gold embroidery, looked lovely. Her death grip on her fan did not. "Highness," she squeaked, straightening. Prince Izar rose with princely precision. He was tall, luminous, irritatingly symmetrical, and smiling. "Lady Daphne," he said warmly, stepping forward. "An honor." He kissed her hand. "You look lovely," he added. Daphne flushed and murmured thanks, peeking at him behind her lashes. Kona watched from a pace behind. Polite? Present? No fireworks. Good. This might actually go according to plan. Prince Izar's eyes landed on Kona next. He stared at her curiously for a moment, as if trying to figure out where he had seen her before. He said, taking a step toward her. "Do I know you?" Kona blinked back, already regretting the shimmer powder she dusted onto her cheekbones this morning. "Not unless you were once a florist in Realm 7A, she said coolly. His violet eyes widened. "I wasn't, but I find it difficult to believe I've never met someone as enchanting as you before." Oh no. He's stupidly charming. Of course he's stupidly charming. Why wouldn't he be? Kona arched her brow. "I'm with the Bureau." "I adore bureaucracy," Izar said without shame. Kona's thoughts swirled, and she wished she could say them aloud to the prince. Stop being adorable. Stop being witty. Stop looking like a leading man in a high-budget fantasy opera. This is not about you. This is about the redhead beside you who is actively trying to merge with the shrubbery. A burst of music startled everyone. One of the swan centerpieces suddenly sprang to life mid-toast, belting out an operatic line from Romance Rekindled, the Ember Duet. "Love is a bubble in the tea of destiny." Guests jumped, someone spilled wine, a napkin fainted into its soup. Kona flicked her fingers under the table, muttering a damping charm. The swan let out one final dramatic note and slumped back into centerpiece form. Across the table, Izar muttered under his breath, "God, another luncheon circus." Kona's eyebrow arched slightly. She cleared her throat. "Your Highness, I believe Lady Daphne was just about to recite a quote from the Ballads of Elowyn." Daphne's eyes went wide. "Oh, yes. I read this line last night and thought it was quite bold. I mean, beautiful." Then Daphne stood to deliver her memorized quote. She inhaled, she smiled, then she panicked. "Your smile is a fever I long to be consumed in the darkest hours of rut." A nearby bird audibly gasped. A cough turned into a choke, a spoon clattered, the enchanted napkins rustled horrified. I meant night? Darkest hours of night?" Daphne turned an impressive shade of pink. She squeaked, folding her fan over her face. Kona sprang into damage control. She reached for the enchanted sugar bowl to distract, channeling a tiny charm through her fingertips to create a calming puff of rose-scented steam. Instead, the sugar bowl vibrated, let out a whimper, and exploded into a neon pink burst of glitter honey. A sticky cascade hit the table. The violins hiccuped. One of the napkins let out a long, despairing shriek and flew away in protest. And from the pastry tray, a single rogue magical truffle, infused with chaos zest and Bureau suppressed for a reason, blinked red and launched into the crowd of nobles. "It's active!" someone yelled. "Stand back!" another cried. "I've got it!" Izar said, grabbing a dessert spoon like a rapier and diving heroically after it. "This is fine. Everything's fine. This is what calm looks like." As the truffle zoomed past her ear and a butter sculpture collapsed in slow motion, Daphne, mortified, stumbled backwards and collided hard with someone carrying a bundle of linens. Linens flew. She flailed. "Stars, sorry, so sorry." The man she had hit reached out just in time, steadying her. He was tall, strong-jawed, and entirely out of place among the nobles. A plain tunic rolled at the sleeves, ink-stained hands and soft eyes that immediately flicked to his. "You all right?" he asked softly, eyes kind beneath tousled hair. No. Yes, I think I broke a harp," she whispered. Their eyes locked. Glitter honey twinkled across Daphne's cheek. "Kinda suits you," he said, giving a shy half-smile. Kona, half sugar-coated, paused mid-spell work to glance at them. Huh. A violin floated to the grass and sighed. On the other side of the lawn, Izar finally stomped the truffle. It exploded into a pink mist of failure and caramel. He straightened, glitter in his hair, eyes sweeping the chaos until they landed back on Kona. She was brushing honey from her sleeves with grim dignity. "You're the only one here," Izar said, appearing beside her, "who didn't duck or scream." Kona blinked at him. "I had a clipboard. I was armed." "That explains the poise," he said, watching her with unexpected curiosity. "So," he said to her, "do Bureau agents always cause explosions, or was this special?" Kona gave him a look. "I was aiming for subtle enchantment. You distracted me." "You flatter me." "I wasn't trying to." "That's even more flattering." Kona hesitated. "Was that interest?" Focus on your client." She glanced over. Daphne and the linen guy, who were now standing very close, laughing. Kona tilted her head. "Maybe. Just once the paperwork was wrong." The hallway just outside the royal garden smelled faintly of scorched sugar and social ruin. Daphne stood very still, arms glued to her sides, trying not to panic. Her gown had frosting on the sleeve. Her shoes were stained with what she hoped was enchanted raspberry jam, and not a magical condiment with sentience. A pink smear arced dramatically across the bodice. Her fan was sticky, her dignity presumed missing. And somehow, it had all begun with a poem about rutting. She groaned quietly and leaned her head back against the cool stone wall. Her curls stuck to her cheek. She peeled them away one by one like wet parchment. That was the worst moment of my entire existence. And I once called a duchess marmalade by accident. She glanced to her right. The linen merchant she'd collided with, Arden, she'd overheard someone say, stood a few feet away, one foot propped on a low bench as he tried to scrape cake off his boot with the edge of a folded receipt scroll. He had broad shoulders under his rolled-up sleeves and dark hair that flopped into his eyes when he leaned forward. Oh no. Handsome. Exceptionally handsome. That's just rude. "I'm so sorry," she blurted. He looked up. His eyes were dark and warm, a bit like tea, she thought, if tea could look surprised and also slightly amused. "Don't worry, I think the jam was going for you. I was just collateral." She laughed, a real laugh, high and breathy, bubbling out before she could stop it. "I truly didn't mean to. I was just trying to avoid a sugar bowl. I didn't see you there. You just appeared." He gave a half shrug, still scraping at the frosting now stuck under the laces. "I've been told I have stealthy linen energy." She blinked, then laughed again. He smiled, this time a little more fully. His smile wasn't princely. It wasn't polished or rehearsed. It was soft and uncertain and made something flutter low in her chest. "I didn't know merchants were allowed near royal events," she said, and immediately cringed. "Oh, not that you shouldn't be. I just meant I've never seen someone so normal." He raised an eyebrow. "Thanks, I think." "No, I mean, you're just not powdered or shimmering or quoting poetry about, well, that. He chuckled. Poetry's overrated. I think I've proven that quite thoroughly. A pause. Not awkward, just quiet. Daphne glanced sideways and then said, a little hesitantly, do you choose the cloth patterns yourself? Arden blinked, clearly not expecting that question. I do, actually. My mother taught me. She said, a good bolt of fabric tells a story before you even cut it. That's lovely, Daphne said, the words slipping out honestly. He shrugged, suddenly a little bashful. Most nobles just ask if I carry more crimson. I don't even like crimson, she said too quickly, then bit her lip. He glanced over, not the way courtiers looked at her, not assessing or calculating, just seeing. I like quiet colors, she added, brushing cake crumbs off her skirt, and quiet places. But that's hard to find here. Everyone is always watching. Arden tilted his head slightly. Yeah, he said. Loud rooms, loud people. All mirrors and music and expectations. Exhausting. Daphne's shoulders dropped a fraction. Her hands curled into the fabric at her waist. I hate how everyone stares at me when I speak, she admitted, voice small. Like they're waiting for me to embarrass myself. Without a beat, Arden looked away, casually, shifting his eyes to the floor, the wall, the half-cleaned jam on his boot, giving her space. No spotlight. Noted, he said lightly. I shall respectfully examine this boot during the duration of our conversation. She let out a breath, somewhere between a laugh and a sigh of relief. Thank you. I'm a professional quiet enjoyer, he added. I hide in alcoves at most public events. Bonus points if there's an escape route and a window seat. Daphne's mouth tilted into a real smile. There's a little nook behind the North Conservatory. You can hear the fountains, but no one ever finds it. Arden looked up briefly, just enough to catch her eyes and then glance away again. That sounds perfect. A moment passed. I think I need a new gown, Daphne said, lifting the ruined hem with 2 fingers. Something less likely to explode. I can help with that, if you want. My shop's just past the bridge in the lower quarter. Bit tucked away, but quieter there. Her smile widened, unguarded and glowing. He's kind, and he doesn't flinch when I talk, and he's not looking over my shoulder for someone more important. Her heart was thudding, gently, steadily. Like maybe it had spotted something real. I'd like that, she said softly. They both stood there a second too long. A distant wail from the banquet hall, something about swan napkins, broke the moment. Arden cleared his throat, rubbing the back of his neck. Well, I should deliver what's left of the table linens. And I, she said, lifting her chin with what was almost dignity, should find out whether frosting dissolves in moonlight. He smiled again. I'll be at the shop tomorrow. Just ask for Arden. She hesitated, then said, I'm Daphne. I know, he said, without looking back. She watched him go, gently touching her sleeve, cake-stained and glowing. The intake portal at the Romantic Magic Compliance Division shimmered with low-grade anxiety. Scrolls flitted overhead like anxious birds, twitching in mid-air, some looping back in sudden panic. One scroll tried to wedge itself into a pneumatic tube, missed, and spiraled off with a humiliated squeak. Above the crystal counter, glowing signage declared, Emotional Disruption Triage. Declare all attachments in triplicate. Kona stepped through the archway, brushing glitter off her sleeves. There was still frosting on one shoe. Great. Sparkles and sugar. She looked like a failed party spell. One lunch. One totally average, professionally detached lunch. And now my entire assignment is moon-eyed chaos. Again. A floating clipboard beeped and hovered toward her expectantly. She gave it a mild glare. "Back off, I'm not ready for you yet." Gibbon, her assigned romantic oversight officer, emerged from behind a stack of misfiled low-mate licenses, wearing the resigned look of a man who had absolutely seen this coming, like he'd just bitten into something mildly disappointing. He was wearing his usual suit and that look, equal parts exhausted and unshocked. "Kona," he said, "didn't expect to see you until tomorrow." "Surprise!" She dropped her satchel on the visitor's chair and sank into it with the force of someone choosing denial as a lifestyle. "You have frosting on your wand holster." She glanced down. "It's, decorative." It's dripping onto the intake ledger, enhancing the margins. A crystal tube behind her groaned and rearranged itself with bureaucratic irritation. A scroll popped, startled. "Paperwork?" Gibbon asked. Kona produced a glowing form from her satchel with the enthusiasm of a tax audit. "Minor emotional interference notification," she said, trying for brisk. It came out defensive. Gibbon scanned it. His eyebrow did the thing. "Third this quarter. I'm aware. You know this flags you for observation." "Yes, thank you. I've read the manual." "Did you read the part about professional distancing from royal clients?" "I had tea, not a soul pledge." "Yet." From the corner alcove, Pex peeked over the top of her aggressively pink issue of Hearts Quarterly, glitter dust clinging to her antennae. "Was it the prince? Please tell me it was the prince." Kona gave her a look normally reserved for cursed cupcakes. "No." "Too fast," she sang, floating closer. "It was the prince." Gibbon didn't react. He just reached for another scroll, this one ringed in pale amber, already glowing with a warning review notification seal. "Technically," Kona offered, arms folded, "he was just unusually charming, in a generic way. He probably flirts with everyone." Gibbon's silence stretched. "Maybe he has a condition. Radiant aura disorder or enchantment-adjacent pheromantic imbalance." "You're glowing." "It's the lighting." "The lighting is fluorescent crystal tube. You're pink." Kona thunked her head gently against the desk. "This is a crush. I'm filing a crush." "Fantastic." "I did the detachment ritual. I wore neutral lip balm. I was braced for boring." She lifted her head. "But then he had those eyes and that bookish charm, and he smiled. It was borderline entrapment." "You enchanted a sugar bowl." "It startled me." "It launched a truffle barrage." Pex was already scribbling in a heart-shaped notepad. "Should I pre-write the entanglement paperwork or wait until you accidentally soul bond at a masquerade?" "There will be no bonding, no masquerades, no waltzes, absolutely no enchanted confession duets." Above her head, the triage scroll glowed pink. "What's that?" she asked, squinting. "Emotional response ping. The form likes your prince. He's not my—" Pex giggled, delight curling through her translucent wings. Kona dropped her head again with a groan. "Honestly, I should just invoke Clause 27L, bury myself in paperwork, and flee to a cliffside cottage." "Wait," said Pex, blinking. "That clause actually exists?" "It's more of a loophole," Kona said. "Requires 17 sealed forms and a neutrality oath." "Well," said Pex, cheerfully, pulling out a sealed envelope, "until then, you've been assigned a temporary portal restriction pending reassessment." Kona sat up. "What?" "Clause 12B," she chirped, "repeated emotional incidents within inter-realm service window. Standard cooldown protocol." "Are you serious?" "I am, and so is the scroll." She handed it over. The seal glowed an ominous, impartial violet. Gibbon offered a sympathetic shrug. "At least now you can't bump into the prince again." "Unless," Pex added, blinking, He stumbles through a restricted portal, soul-bonded, desperate, shirt undone. Pecs. Right. I'll file this under crush, moderate to royal. The garden lay in the warm hush of late afternoon, golden sunlight tilting across half-finished place settings like spilled honey. A rogue napkin fluttered in the hedge like a white flag of surrender. Somewhere, a bee was having a field day with an upturned fruit tart. Daphne stood at the edge of the scene like a survivor surveying the aftermath of battle. Her gloved fingers tightened around her parasol. Lady Daphne was beginning to suspect that fairy godmothers weren't so much gentle guiding lights as they were strategic saboteurs with impressive hats. Kona had certainly delivered chaos wrapped in charm, and an explosion of truffles if one were counting. Her dress still had an ominous smear across the hem, courtesy of one overly enthusiastic Duke's son. But none of it lingered quite so clearly in her mind as him. Arden. The merchant with laughing eyes and calloused hands, and no business looking quite so concerned for her when she'd nearly sent him face first into the shrimp platter. She shook the memory off like crumbs from a napkin. Behind her, Duke Norman cleared his throat. "Shall we, Daphne?" She turned, putting on her most diplomatic smile. "Yes, father." But as they walked the garden path toward the waiting carriage, she couldn't help it. Her mind betrayed her, picturing Prince Izar offering his hand in dance. And instead of Izar's refined smile, Arden's lopsided grin looked back at her. She blinked hard. Oh dear. Later that evening, Daphne was cozy in her study nook. Her bedroom window was cracked open, letting in a breeze laced with wisteria and the faint scent of something caramelizing in the palace kitchens far below. The glow of sunset lit her desk like a stage. She pulled her journal toward her, the one with worn corners and a pressed daisy still crumbling on the inside cover. She dipped her quill dramatically into ink. Dear Journal, today's luncheon featured one minor noble swinging from a rose trellis, an exploding truffle incident that I dare not recount, and... She paused. And Arden. She tapped the quill to her chin, staring out the window as if the clouds might answer her. But all they did was drift like gossiping ladies at a garden party. I barely know him, she scribbled next. And yet, I feel as if he sees right through me and doesn't mind the mess. It's dreadful. It's exhilarating. I feel 16 again. A soft chuckle escaped her lips. But I'm not a girl waiting for approval anymore, am I? She exhaled slowly. Her heart was thudding in a curious, restless rhythm. Pushing back from the desk, she stood, paced. Her reflection blinked back at her from the tall mirror near the window. She squared her shoulders and stared it down. No, Father. I've decided to pursue happiness my own way. She winced. No, I sound like a pamphlet. Another attempt. Father, I deserve a life where I get to choose. She paused, quieter now. Even if it scares me. The breeze caught the edge of her curtains. The shadows had deepened to lavender. A small tap-tap sounded at the doorframe. Godmother Kona stood there, wreathed in the faint shimmer of leftover magic and possibly flower petals. Is this a bad time? She asked, tilting her head. Or are you rehearsing a declaration of war? Daphne burst into laughter, the tension in her chest cracking like a shell. Just practicing treason, polite rebellion. Kona stepped into the room, eyes warm. It suits you. Daphne looked away, embarrassed and oddly shy. I'm trying to find the courage to tell my father I don't want to marry a title, that I want something real. Kona nodded. You already have the courage. It's just stretching its wings. Daphne met her eyes. I keep thinking of Arden, and I know I shouldn't. Why not? Kona asked gently. Because I'm supposed to want the prince. I'm supposed to want all of it. But when I was falling, it wasn't Prince Izar who caught me. It was Arden, and he laughed with me, not at me. Kona smiled. Maybe your heart is smarter than the script. Daphne looked down at her ink-stained fingers. I don't even know what I want. Kona walked over and plucked a petal from Daphne's hair with a wink. Well, that's what adventures are for. A quiet moment passed. Then Daphne inhaled deeply, straightened, and returned to her desk. She dipped the quill once more and added in a steady hand, I want a life of my own choosing. Maybe, just maybe, that includes love. She looked back over her shoulder. Kona, would you accompany me tomorrow? I'd like to stop by Merchant Arden's shop. I've decided I want some new dresses. Something, pause, eyes glinting, unconventional. Kona grinned. Oh, darling, I was hoping you'd say that. Outside, a single blossom opened on the garden tree beneath her window with a soft chime.
The balcony garden was mostly asleep at this hour, the hush of magic between night and dreams. Silver-leaf ivy rustled in the mild breeze, trailing along the stone balustrades like lazy whispers. Distantly, a fountain played its glassy tune. Lanterns floated overhead, slow-moving glows adrift on threads of moonlight. Kona leaned on the railing, arms folded, shawl tucked tight around her shoulders, not for warmth, but armor. One lantern bobbed too close. It blinked a polite shade of pink gold and gave a soft bloop before veering off again. Her gaze tracked it absently. Tomorrow she'd take Lady Daphne to Merchant Arden's shop for dresses. Yes, but also perhaps courage. She was glad Pex had snuck her in through the service gate tonight. The portal ban was technically still in place after the truffle incident. Was it wise to sneak back into the royal palace? She mused. Probably not. But she needed to ensure no magical residue lingered from the chaos. She didn't expect company. Behind her, the door creaked. Oh no. Thought I might find you here, said a voice, softer than last time, quieter than she expected, and lacking that flirtatious shine she'd come to associate with him. Prince Izar. Kona didn't turn. Her grip on the stone railing tightened. His eyes say diplomat. His smile says disaster. It's a large palace, she replied flatly. He came to stand beside her, respectfully distant. Not close enough to touch, but enough that his presence shifted the air, warm and golden like candlelight. I wanted to apologize, he said. About earlier. Kona arched a brow. The luncheon? The truffle? The napkin casualties? Be specific. I mean, he smiled faintly, the staring, the everything. Kona let the silence answer. I've made a profession out of being agreeable, Izar said after a moment. But no one ever talks to me like you do." That got her attention. She turned slightly, just enough to catch his profile in the lantern glow. Gone was the polished charm. In its place, vulnerability, bare and boyish. "I'm not trying to flatter you, Kona," he said. "I know how it sounds. But when I saw you, it felt like remembering. Like walking into a room I dreamed of. I know how that sounds. I do." She exhaled sharply. Don't romanticize this." "I'm not." He faced her fully now, eyes steady. "I've always believed in soulmates, not because it's romantic, but because sometimes people find each other and everything just clicks." Kona blinked. The stars didn't feel so far away anymore. "I'm not some storybook twist," she said softly. "I'm not a long-lost royal or a cursed heir. I'm a bureau agent. I know. And I'm assigned to help Lady Daphne win your heart?" Izar nodded slowly. "She's kind, sweet, but she looks at me like I'm a goal to reach. You look at me like I'm already there." She shook her head. "You don't know me." "I'd like to." The words landed with quiet weight. A pale blue lantern, magically soul-sensitive, drifted close. It pulsed between them. Once, twice. Recognition. Izar raised his hand, not reaching, just offering. Kona stared at the space between them. Her fingers twitched. Don't reach for a thing you're not allowed to hold." "I'm not allowed to love someone I'm assigned to help," she said low. "It's not just a rule. It's written into the magic. Romantic interference corrupts fate's thread." "You think fate's that fragile?" he whispered. "I think hearts are." For a heartbeat, neither of them breathed. Then, her fingers dropped to her side. His hands slowly lowered too. Kona stepped back. Her eyes shone, not with tears, but with restraint. "I have duties," she said, "and you have a kingdom. Let's not pretend knowing each other changes that." She turned toward the door, gathering her shawl like armor. "Kona." She paused, just at the threshold. "If we'd met under different circumstances," he began. "Then maybe," she finished, "we'd have floated too close to a flame." When she looked back, he was still standing at the railing, hand resting where hers had almost landed. The stars blinked on above them, one by one. The bolt and stitch shop nestled into the corner of a cobbled lane like a secret whispered between lifelong friends. Its windows were tangled with ivy, and an enchanted bell above the door chimed not with a ding, but a sound like soft applause, as though even the building approved of its guests. Inside, candlelight floated mid-air, glowing in shades of gold and peach, as though the air itself longed to be cozy. Shelves curved like flower petals, bursting with bolts of fabric in every imaginable hue, silks that shimmered like sunlight over ripples, velvets that hummed softly when touched, linens kissed with stardust threads. The handwritten price tags swayed gently, each one signed in curling ink and ending with a courteous, "Please." Kona stepped in behind Lady Daphne, eyes narrowing with appreciation as they adjusted to the romantic hush of the space. "This is a shop for dreamers," she thought, and maybe, just maybe, two of them are about to wake up to each other. Daphne moved slowly, fingers grazing a bolt of cornflower blue that nearly mirrored her eyes. It was softer, freer than anything court approved. "I've never seen so many fabrics in one place," she breathed. "You'd be surprised how often nobles forget what texture feels like," Kona replied. Daphne flushed and let her hand drift over a length of floral-stitched tulle, hesitating with wistful affection. Then, the curtain at the back rustled. Arden emerged, a measuring tape slung over one shoulder, chalk dust faintly smudging his cuffs. "Oh!" Daphne turned at once, the light in her face unmistakable. "Hello!" Arden blinked, then smiled, slow and lopsided, the kind of smile that looked like it had surprised even him. "You came," he said. "I said I would," she replied softly. Kona watched the moment flutter between them like a firefly dancing from heart to heart. "This is Miss Kona," Daphne added quickly, gesturing between them. "She's my fairy godmother." Kona gave a dry wave. "Licensed and sparkled. Don't ask to see the wand. It's still in trauma therapy after lunch." Arden chuckled. "Pleasure to meet you." "Likewise," Kona replied, drifting off to a nearby shelf, conveniently within earshot. "I was hoping you'd come today," Arden said to Daphne. "There's something I wanted to show you, if that's all right." Daphne nodded, curious. He vanished briefly into the back, then returned carrying a bolt of fabric. Delicate and pale, edged in tiny embroidered vines of soft green, lavender, and the gentlest blush pink. "I found one of your sketches," he admitted, eyes not quite meeting hers. "It slipped out of your book last time. I didn't mean to pry, but it reminded me of the way you looked when you spoke about your garden, so I tried." He unrolled it, revealing the full pattern, flowers blooming with subtle magic, a design stitched not for fashion, but for her. "I know it's not perfect," he said quickly. "I'm not a designer, just a merchant with too many opinions about thread." Daphne stared at it. Her voice trembled when she finally whispered, "No one's ever noticed the things I love like this." Her eyes shimmered, not from magic, but something warmer, truer. Then her gaze caught on the hem of the sample, where the vines tapered into a barely there loop of threads, something almost symbolic. "What's this?" she asked gently, brushing her thumb across the stitching. Arden hesitated, then gave a half shrug. Protection sigil. Old tailor's charm. I stitched it in by habit, but when I was working on this, I kept thinking, I wanted you to feel safe wearing it, like the fabric could remember what you cared about most." Daphne blinked, stunned. He saw her, not just the garden-loving girl beneath a noble title, but the daughter of Duke Norman of Ashglen, the political pawn everyone else expected her to be. And yet here he was, stitching her strength into fabric, not her status. "Would you," he began, then paused, nervous. "Would you like to help shape the final pattern? The vine work, it's lovely, but you know your vision better than I ever could." Daphne looked up, something new and fierce blooming behind her shy smile. "Yes," she said, "I'd love to." Arden led her to a wide work table, and for a time they bent over the bolt together, sketching, laughing softly, adjusting patterns side by side. Their fingers brushed again and again, and neither apologized. As they worked, the enchantment of the shop seemed to pulse around them, approving. When they paused, fabric between them, Daphne's smile was quieter but full of light. "I think," she brushed a thumb across a fresh vine twist, "this might be the first thing I've ever helped make that feels like me." Arden looked at her, really looked, then said just as quietly, "Then it's already perfect." Their hands lingered on the bolt. They didn't pull away.
Kona, still nearby, closed her eyes briefly in silent triumph. There it is, she thought. No fate thread, no spell, just choice. Two people choosing each other one stitch at a time. She strolled back towards them with a casual grin. Daphne, would you like me to tell the queen you've discovered a sudden allergy to formal wear? Because I'm happy to invent a medical scroll. Daphne giggled, the sound light and real. I'll handle it, she said. I think I'm starting to find my voice. Arden offered his arm, just slightly. She took it without hesitation. And as the enchanted bell applauded behind them again, Kona thought, this story, finally, is starting to sew itself into something lovely.
The loom-way after-hours desk was unusually still. The scrolls floated slower, quieter. The floor glowed a soft mauve, and the ceiling shimmered like moonlit water. Calm, watchful, waiting. Kona stood alone at the marble counter, flipping through a thick, humming bureau handbook that smelled like dusty rose petals and outdated enchantments. A teacup hovered loyally beside her, labeled chamomile plus emotional resilience, steaming with quiet urgency. The bureau doesn't encourage loopholes, she muttered, scanning a densely inked page. But oh stars, do they have them? Her finger tapped a barely glowing footnote, and the margins shivered as the enchantment reawakened. Clause 27L. Contractual neutralization upon subject redirection. If a primary romantic target voluntarily abandons pursuit of their assigned match due to personal revelation or redirected emotional attachment, all godparent contracts shall be considered nullified, without penalty or consequence. Kona exhaled. No one's filed this clause in decades, she murmured, a slow smile tugging at her mouth. But I'm not no one. She closed the book with reverence, like bowing to an old spell, then vanished in a swirl of lavender sparkles, not rushed, but purposeful. Time had passed since the tailor's shop. Enough for decisions to bloom, letters to be drafted, politics to stir, and roots to set in. Sunlight dripped through the trellised archway as Daphne knelt among her roses, her gloves smudged with soil. She looked nothing like a future duchess, and everything like herself. Beside her, on a low stone bench, Arden sketched the curvature of a newly bloomed lily, occasionally glancing up at her with quiet admiration. Kona arrived just outside the hedge. She stepped into the garden and didn't need to speak. Daphne looked up, her smile blooming faster than any flower. "We were just about to send for you," she said, cheeks flushed with something brighter than just mourning. "I found a clause," Kona said, keeping her voice soft. "It's obscure, legal hedge maze obscure, but it's real. I needed your written consent. If you're no longer pursuing Prince Izar..." Daphne stood, brushing off her knees, already drafted and signed. She reached into her satchel and produced a rolled scroll. "I practiced reading it out loud last night, in case someone tries to make it feel less real." Kona blinked. "You actually rehearsed bureaucratic declaration?" Daphne grinned sheepishly. "I may stammer tomorrow, but I choose today." That, Kona thought, was a completed arc. Arden stood too, offering her a smile that needed no words. "Disgusting," Kona muttered, but fondly. "Absolutely duet-core." The enchanted lighting panels above Gibbon's desk glowed with reluctant morning light. The aging Ursabin sat hunched over a ledger, quill in his teeth, and a faint aura of caffeine desperation. Kona reappeared in a shimmer of lavender. "I need a Form 27L, she said with triumph. Gibbon groaned and pulled out the exact form like he'd been waiting for this since Tuesday. Form 27L, intent to abandon assigned affectional roles. It shimmered politely, with margins lined in neutral gold.
"You better file it properly this time," Gibbon grumbled. "Last time you crumpled it into a paper dove and released it over Realm 3B. That doesn't count as submission."
"I was making a statement," she replied primly. "That dove had narrative symbolism, and Bureau Art liked it." She slid Daphne's letter across the counter. It glowed soft rose and smelled faintly of wild strawberries. Gibbon read aloud. "Lady Daphne of Ashglen formally withdraws pursuit of Prince Izar of Solara, citing redirection of attachment to local artisan Arden Merrick." He paused before commenting, "File reflects consent, clarity, and an unfortunate fondness for embroidery metaphors." He stamped the parchment with an iridescent seal. A heartbeat later, Kona's own contract shimmered and dissolved. Not a dramatic shatter, just a gentle dispersal of gold dust and magic. Like breathing out something I didn't know I was holding in, she thought. "You're unassigned," Gibbon said, marking something in his book. "Again." "Thank you," Kona murmured, then hesitated. "Gibbon." He looked up with the resigned weariness of a man who knew what was coming. "Try not to cause a diplomatic romance incident this time." "I'm not planning on anything," she said innocently. "You never are. That's what worries me." The roses were still catching dew when Kona returned to Lady Daphne's garden, though this time with the quiet confidence of someone untethered. She stepped through the hedge and stopped short. Prince Izar was already there, seated across from Daphne and Arden, sipping tea as though he belonged in the middle of the lovers' garden brunch. His head turned instantly, his violet eyes locked on hers with that same expression he'd worn on the balcony. Soft, open, sincere. Kona froze. Izar rose at once. "Kona," he said, "I was hoping I'd find you." Her heart gave an undignified thump. He's probably here to offer political closure, she thought, or to thank me for letting him down gently, or ask for a referral. But even she didn't believe that. Kona's body finally unfroze, though her heart seemed to determine to keep up the ice and fire war in her chest. She brushed invisible sparkles off her shoulder and pasted on her best professional smile. "Your Highness," she greeted, her voice smooth but a little tight. "Lady Daphne, Mr. Arden, you're all looking moderately untangled." Daphne blushed and squeezed Arden's hand. "We've had a lovely morning." Arden gave a shy nod, cheeks pink. "Speaking of," she said brightly, "I come bearing contract news. Lady Daphne is officially unassigned. My mission is complete. My parchment has crumbled to dust, and no small explosions were involved. I'd call that a Bureau win." "That's wonderful," Daphne beamed, then added more softly, "Thank you, Kona, truly." Izar took a slow step closer. He said, "I assume you've heard. Mother nearly had a diplomatic fit, and I believe your father," he added with a glance toward Daphne, "threw a ballistic one of his own." Daphne lifted a hand in mock apology. "We smoothed it over, mostly." Kona blinked. "No duels? No public curses?" Just 3 stern scrolls and 1 panicked ambassador. All things considered, a win. Kona laughed despite herself. "You're not mad?" "Relieved," he said quietly. "It wasn't my story to finish. And besides..." His voice softened. "I wasn't visiting Ashglen for diplomatic reasons. Not really." Kona looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her unanchored heart fluttered. For once, she didn't reach for a quip or a complaint form. She simply smiled, a little nervous, but grounded. Izar stepped forward, clearing his throat. "May I speak with you? Alone?" Kona's stomach did a flip, but she nodded, forcing her hands to remain at her sides instead of nervously conjuring a bouquet of anxiety-soothing orchids. She turned to Daphne and Arden. "I should be heading back to the bureau. I'm already overdue for my debriefing, and Gibbon's probably threatening to turn my dusk into a mushroom again." They all exchanged hugs, even Arden, shy but grateful. Daphne whispered, "Be careful with your heart." Kona gave a small smile. Too late. They walked quietly down the garden path, dappled with lazy sunshine and petals from a breeze that smelled like sugar and earth. At the edge of the garden was an inter-realm portal, a soft glowing ring of light hovering between the ivy-covered arch. Kona paused to gather herself. Just be gracious. Professional. Perhaps the friendly nod. Or a pun. He seems to like puns. Then she noticed something. Izar held something behind his back. He stepped forward, looking almost nervous. "Before you go," he said, and pulled out a small bundle of flowers. They were awkwardly tied together with a piece of ribbon, lavender and white blossoms, clearly gathered by hand, a little uneven, a little wild. "They're just flowers," he said quickly. "No spells, no glamour, no enchanted fragrance. I picked them myself." Kona blinked, stunned. "They're a bit scraggly," he added, "but they're real. I wanted to offer me, not the prince, not the protocol, just me." She stared at him, then laughed softly. Not cruel, not mocking, just warmed. "And maybe," she said, taking the flowers, "a smidge of fate." His smile stretched, slow and hopeful. They stood for a moment in quiet. Kona looked at the portal, then at him, then at the flowers. "You're really going to do this?" her mind asked. "Apparently," her heart replied. "You know, we're going to have to file new forms for this." Izar gave a mocked groan. "I'll brave the scroll work if it means walking through that portal with you." She looked up at him, heart suddenly loud in her chest. "That's very romantic and incredibly foolish." He grinned. "Then we're even." Kona and Prince Izar proceeded to the burrow portal together. As they passed beneath the ivy-arched portal, the magic shimmered in warm gold around them, acknowledging something unspoken. Kona cast one last glance behind her, then forward. "Maybe I can be the godmother and the girl," she thought. "Maybe that's allowed." "Gibbon's going to have a field day," she muttered aloud, "and gods only know what Pex will say." Izar chuckled. "Who's Gibbon?" "You'll see," she said ominously. "And what's a Pex?" "You'll definitely see." The portal shimmered again as they vanished through it side by side. A prince, a godmother, a new file already being written in the ever-watchful scrolls of the Loomway. The portal swirled shut behind them with a wink of lavender gold light. Somewhere far off, a teacup sighed in relief, And a gossip sprite perked up with a new headline already forming. The Loomway, 1 week later. Kona's office had never looked cozier, or more chaotic. Stacks of parchment rustled from overfull inbox trays. A ceiling sprite snoozed in the lantern light, and at the heart of the storm, Kona sat at her wide, curved desk, flipping through case files with one hand and plucking an enchanted cupcake from a hovering tray with the other. Across from her, in a bureau-issued chair he had clearly made look princely, sat Prince Izar of Solara. Correction, Izar, former heir to Solara, current chaos accomplice and temporary romantic case consultant, while he applied to be a realm border affairs agent. He had frosting on his sleeve and a quill behind one ear. I still don't understand why the strawberry ones are slightly passive-aggressive, he said, poking a cupcake that sparkled with irritated sugar. They're baked by revenge sprites, very useful for rejection paperwork. A flash of lavender magic danced over her desk as a scroll arrived by bureau tube with a pleased pop. Kona snatched it mid-air and broke the seal. Her brows lifted. Email from Gibbon. Case 27L, final processing. Reinstatement approved. Romantic misalignment exception now formally filed. P.S. Your portal key has been reactivated. P.P.S. Please tell your +1 not to charm the filing cabinets. They're unionized. Kona snorted. You've been bothering the cabinets? I said they had noble hinges. That's barely flattery. You winked at the inbox sorter. It was a diplomatic gesture. Kona shook her head, amused but touched. The warmth curled beneath her ribs. Less firestorm, more hearth. Like she was still learning how to hold something that didn't need guarding. Izar reclined slightly, scanning the case file she'd pushed toward him. He murmured, This one's a classic. Enchanted heirlooms, repressed feelings, and a rival sibling turned emotional support goose. Ah, Kona said, flicking through her notes. That goose is extremely qualified. A moment passed in companionable rustling and half-eaten cupcakes. Then, Kona set down her quill and turned to him properly. You know, she said, voice softer, if you stay here, the Loomway isn't a weekend detour. It's a life. Izar didn't flinch. Instead, he looked at her like he already knew. My little brother wanted the throne since he could read. Frankly, he is better at court politics, better with protocol, and 10 times more photogenic in ceremonial armor. Kona raised a skeptical brow. So you're just handing over the succession? That's simple? He shrugged, but it was the kind of shrug that cost him careful thought. I never wanted to rule. I wanted to build, to help. Maybe that means learning how magic tangles the interrealms instead of solitary kingdoms. He looked around her office with something like wonder. The Loomway has rules, but it also has chaos. That's my kind of fun. She stared at him for a beat. You'd give up an empire for enchanted HR? Izar grinned. For you, technically, but I'm developing a fondness for the bureaucracy. You're unbelievable, she muttered. And unassigned, he added brightly. She tossed a cupcake at his head. He caught it with reflexes honed by too many state dinners. Outside the window, the Loomway shimmered with quiet purpose. Scrolls flying, portals blinking. Somewhere, a teacup muttering gossip. Life continued.
but different. Because sometimes the stories don't end at the declaration. Sometimes they keep going into the paperwork, into the cupcakes, into the steady unfolding of something real, something earned. And in an office stacked with fate and frosting, a prince and a godmother began their next assignment together. Thanks for listening. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more enchanted chaos. See you next time.